For thousands of years, the galaxy followed one rule so old and so important that it was simply called the oldest rule. Never interfere with the natural evolution of sentient life. It was written into every treaty, taught to every species that reached space, and respected even by those who hated each other. This rule was not just was a warning carved deep into the memory of civilizations that had seen what happened when powerful beings played God. Yet in the cold, silent reaches of space, one powerful race decided the rule no longer mattered. The Zeltari, known for their sharp minds and lack of emotion, had watched a young species grow rapidly on a small blue world called Earth. Humans were curious. It's chaotic and full of contradictions. Creative one day, destructive the next. Zaltari didn't fear them. In fact, they barely saw them as important. But when they noticed how quickly humans were learning faster than any species they'd observed, they decided to act. Quietly, through hidden satellites and disguised signals, they sent Earth information it hadn't earned. Breakthroughs. In physics, hidden answers to unsolved equations. Blueprints for machines humans hadn't even dreamed of, yet a love it was fed to Earth like breadcrumbs dropped in a forest. The Zaltari wanted to shape the future of humanity without being seen. They wanted to guide, manipulate, and bend Earth to their own design, hoping that when humans finally reached the stars, it would be tools sharp, loyal, and useful. But they miscalculated. Humans didn't follow scripts. They didn't stay on paths written for them. It's most dangerously. They asked questions no one expected them to ask. Within years of receiving these mysterious boosts in knowledge, Earth's scientists began to notice strange gaps in the data ideas that didn't match the usual human way of thinking. Patterns emerged. A signal buried deep inside the code revealed something shocking. It wasn't human at all. It was alien. Panic spread through Earth's secret research centers, and then unity. For the first time in history, the major powers of Earth came together not to fight each other, but to uncover the truth. Who had been watching them? Who had been helping them? Within a few decades, Earth's first interstellar ship wasn't just a mission of exploration, it was a message. We know you're out there. That was when the Galactic Council, a great alliance of spacefaring species, finally noticed what the Zaltari had done. The Council had seen Earth's rapid growth, but assumed it was a natural leap forward. Now, the truth could no longer be hidden. The Zaltari's secret files were stolen and exposed by human cyber teams operating across alien networks. Evidence was presented clear, undeniable proof that the oldest rule had been broken. Earth had been uplifted. But unlike other species who had welcomed the help, Earth was not thankful. Humanity saw it as an insult, a theft of their right to grow at their own pace. The Zaltari had interfered not to help but to control, and now they had made a terrible mistake. They had created not a servant but an enemy. The Galactic Council fell into confusion. Sanctions were discussed. Blame was tossed around. The Zaltari claimed they meant no harm, but no one was listening anymore. All eyes turned to Earth. What would humanity do now that they knew the truth? The answer came not with speeches or demands, but with silence. Earth stopped sharing data. It stopped replying to open messages. It withdrew its diplomats and started building something huge: stations, deep space fleets, AI-controlled defense systems. Something had changed. Humanity had gone quiet, but not passive. The stars began to whisper a question that sent chills through even the oldest empires. What happens when you break the galaxy's oldest law and target a species that refuses to be controlled? The Zaltari thought they were guiding a child. Instead, they had woken up a hunter. And now, far across the stars, a storm was forming, not loud, not wild, not focused, precise. And the galaxy had no idea what was coming. Humanity did not respond with warships or threats. Even though many expected them to, the galaxy watched, waiting for Earth to explode in fury, but instead, the humans became strangely calm, like a sea just before a powerful storm. Their leaders smiled in every meeting, shook hands in every gathering, and spoke about peace, progress, and partnership. They opened trade routes, offered advanced medical supplies, and helped smaller civilizations connect to the galactic market. On the surface, it looked like Earth was simply trying to find its place in the stars. But behind the curtain, something deeper was happening. Human diplomats, spies, and scientists worked silently, carefully, and with unmatched focus. They were mapping the truth, following the invisible trail the Zaltari had left behind when they interfered with Earth's growth. Using code-breaking AIs and reverse engineering alien signals, they uncovered disturbing data. This wasn't just about giving Earth's advanced knowledge. The Zaltari had experimented in humans. Subtle changes had been made to early human genetics, tweaks that were meant to influence behavior, slow aggression, and encourage dependence. Memories had been implanted in key scientists during dream states, making them believe they had discovered ideas on their own. This wasn't a gift. It was control designed to make humanity more obedient and easier to manage once it reached the stars. And now, Earth had proof. The question wasn't whether to expose it, but how. So humanity waited, watched, and chose the perfect moment. At the annual Galactic Tribunal, where the most powerful races gathered to decide major matters, Earth's Representative Ambassador Helena Rohn stepped onto the shining floor with quiet confidence. She was calm, her voice steady. As she requested permission to share evidence related to a violation of the oldest rule, the chamber fell silent. Everyone remembered the whispers. Everyone had heard the rumors, but what Helena presented changed everything. Holograms filled the air, footage of altered DNA, memory traces analyzed by top scientists, logs of hidden Zaltari signals sent to Earth decades ago. The data was clear, direct, and impossible to deny. What shocked the galaxy most wasn't just the violation, but the depth of it. This wasn't casual help or accidental contact. It was long-term manipulation, tested on a species still struggling to leave its own solar system. Some council members gasped. Others looked away. The Zaltari delegates stood frozen. Then, when asked to respond, the Zaltari claimed it was all a misunderstanding. They said their actions were part of a cultural exchange, a gentle form of guidance to help Earth avoid mistakes made by other young races. They argued they never meant harm, that they had only wanted to speed up Earth's progress and protect it from internal collapse. A few believed him. The silence in the chamber was heavy. The council hesitated. Punishing a powerful race like the Zaltari could start a war, but ignoring the crime would destroy the council's authority. While debates began behind closed doors, humanity didn't wait. They had seen enough, heard enough, and trusted no one but themselves. Quietly, Earth recalled its ambassadors, pulled back its offers, and redirected its fleets. It did not announce war. It did not make threats. Instead, human forces disappeared from known space, slipping into shadow. Small Zaltari data stations began to suffer technical failures. Listening posts in unclaimed sectors went dark. Secret labs hidden on moons were quietly emptied, equipment gone, personnel missing, systems erased without a trace. Earth simply stated that it was investigating internal security issues, nothing more. But the pattern was clear to anyone paying attention. Humanity was retaliating not with grand battles or planet-destroying weapons, but with quiet precision. They were taking apart the Zaltari machine piece by piece, always staying just outside the borders of open war. Minor factions began whispering of Earth's power. Small races, long ignored or bullied by the Zaltari, started turning to humanity for help. Earth's silence became louder than any declaration. It spoke of patience, of anger held deep, and of a plan unfolding step by step. The Zaltari, who had once believed they were the smartest minds in the galaxy, now found themselves surrounded by doubt, fear, and resistance. They could not respond without proving guilt. They could not attack without appearing as aggressors. Humanity had trapped them without ever firing a single public shot, and still, Earth said nothing. They didn't ask for revenge. They didn't beg for justice. They simply prepared. Every action they took was calculated, quiet, and focused. And across the galaxy, other powers began to realize something terrifying. Earth had not only survived the interference, it had learned from it The species the Zaltari tried to control had become something far more dangerous, a race that could think like them, strike like them, and hide like them. Humanity had taken the rules of the game and rewritten them. The galaxy, once dismissive of Earth, now watched in silence, unsure of what would happen next. Because when justice fails and the guilty walk free, there is always someone waiting. In the dark, ready to act, that someone now wore a human face. The first sign came quietly as Zaltari. Data core on the remote mining world of Crexus 4 suddenly went offline. All systems dead, its backup memories wiped clean. At first it was treated like a malfunction. But then, a listening post near. The Orion fringe disappeared without a trace. Signal stopped, its beacon faded, and no distress call was ever received. In official meetings, nothing was confirmed. The Zaltari issued polite statements and said they were investigating technical failures. But in hushed conversations behind closed doors, every major species knew the truth. This was no accident. Humanity had begun its quiet retaliation, and it was moving with careful, chilling precision. There were no public threats, no warships in orbit, no broadcasts demanding revenge. Instead, one by one, Zaltari outposts, research hubs, and secret stations started going dark. Every attack was clean, exact, and carried out without civilian casualties. Supply routes were disrupted, communications intercepted, and AI control systems rewritten to erase entire networks. The Zaltari, once known for their perfect systems and tight control, were now being taken apart piece by a species they had once considered primitive. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. Other civilizations had taken centuries to learn how to navigate interstellar politics and warfare. But Earth had done it in less than 100 years and was now executing galaxy-scale operations with skill and coordination that even older empires struggled to match. Human stealth ships, shaped like shadows, began appearing near asteroid belts and unclaimed sectors, always staying just outside enemy sensor range. They left no trail and used no traditional weapons, relying on electromagnetic pulses advanced, AI sabotage, and gravity-based disruption tools. The targets never saw them coming. They only realized what had happened when their systems collapsed from the inside, leaving nothing to trace. The Zaltari tried to push back. They hired private fleets, sent covert scouts, and even placed bounties on key human agents. But none of it worked. Every move they made was predicted. Every counterattack shut down before it even started. Became clear that humanity had studied them deeply, learned their weaknesses, and planned every step of the campaign long before the first strike was launched. Earth's strategy was simple, but terrifying. Don't strike where the enemy expects. Don't destroy planets or cities. Just erase their ability to control, to monitor, to spread influence. Humanity wasn't just attacking, it was cutting the Zaltari out of the galaxy's systems like a virus removed from the bloodstream. The Zaltari finally stood before the Galactic Council, demanding that action be taken. They shouted about illegal war, about unprovoked attacks, about the need to maintain order. But the Council remained quiet. Many of its members were still haunted by their earlier failure to punish the Zaltari for violating the oldest rule. Some feared Earth's growing influence. Others secretly approved of what was happening, glad to see a bully being brought down without dragging the whole galaxy into open war. One representative even said privately, "Perhaps this is what justice looks like when the Council looks away." And so, the silence remained. The Zaltari, once proud and untouchable, now found themselves isolated, hunted not by brute force, but by precision. Their maps were redrawn, as their presence vanished from once secure sectors. Their allies drifted away, not wanting to be caught in the path of Earth's quiet storm. Trade routes avoided them. Messages went unanswered. Their power was fading. From war, but from strategic erasure. And the most unsettling part for the galaxy was that humanity never spoke about it. Earth never made announcements, never claimed victories, never even confirmed the attacks. They acted as if nothing was happening, continuing peaceful talks with neutral factions, and building scientific outposts far from conflict zones. But everyone knew what was really going on. This was not a race seeking revenge. This was a race that had learned what it meant to be manipulated and would never allow it again. The message was clear without being spoken. We will not destroy you, but we will take from you what you tried to take from us: freedom. In quiet corners of the galaxy, young races began to whisper about Earth, not as a newcomer, but as a protector, a force that had risen from being a target to a powerful player in just one generation. Their story spread not through news, but through stories told in markets, in pilot bars, and among data traders, a species that had been used like a tool that sharpened itself into a blade. The Zaltari, watching their empire shrink, could only hold on to the last pieces of their power and wonder how a single act of arrogance breaking the oldest rule had led to this. And yet, no one could say the punishment was unfair. The rule had been broken. The one species they had tried to shape into a servant had chosen to pay the price on its own terms, with its own hands. In a war of shadows where silence cut deeper than any weapon, the Zaltari, cornered and desperate, made a move that would change everything. They launched a sudden strike on a human colony near the red star Proxima Vinteris. It was not just a military action, but a carefully calculated attempt to force Earth into open war and frame them as the aggressors. The Zaltari believed that if humanity responded with full-scale violence, they could finally call for counsel, intervention, and claim they were acting in defense. But they misjudged more than just Earth's strategy. They misjudged its soul. The colony they targeted wasn't a military base. It was a peaceful settlement, focused on diplomacy, education, and scientific research. There were no soldiers on Proxima Venturis, only families, engineers, doctors, and children. When the strike hit, it was brutal and fast. Orbital beams tore through buildings, communications towers collapsed, and evacuation ships were blasted. Mid-air, in less than 10 minutes, the colony was gone. The Zaltari sent out a message claiming it was a necessary security action. The humans had placed hidden weapons on the planet. But by then, the truth was already being shared across the galaxy. Hundreds of nearby stations had picked up the emergency distress calls, and dozens of drones captured the final moments of the colony as it burned. The footage spread like wildfire, scientists shielding children with their bodies, teachers trying to lead evacuations, human diplomats making final recordings of the attack as they perished. The galaxy watched in silence, not the silence of doubt, but of shock. What they saw wasn't a powerful empire under threat. It was a peaceful world destroyed without warning. What they saw wasn't an angry species demanding war, but a civilization, mourning the loss of its innocent. And in that moment, the galaxy changed its mind. Neutral races that had stayed silent during earlier conflicts now stepped forward. Small factions offered intelligence and supplies. Older empires opened their fleets to Earth's diplomats. Even long-isolated worlds sent messages of support, condemning the Zaltari for what many now called an act of cowardice. Humanity grieving, but clear-minded, did not respond with rage. Instead, it launched Operation Requital, a mission planned long before, but never unleashed until now. Earth's leaders made it clear this would not be about destruction. No planets would be turned to dust, no civilians would be harmed. But every root of Zaltari power, every influence post, every shadow council, every strategic stronghold would be removed. Quietly and quickly, Earth's allies shared maps, codes, secret routes, and access points. Within weeks, operations unfolded across dozens of systems. Human strike teams disabled leadership outposts, drones swarmed data hubs, erasing and copying vast archives. AI programs locked down transport lanes used for political control. The Zaltari began to vanish from positions they had held for centuries, removed not with fire, but with precision. Earth's forces didn't gloat, didn't claim territory, didn't ask for praise. They simply removed what had been used to interfere with others, what had been used to interfere with them. Across the galaxy, planets that once feared the Zaltari now stood tall. In council chambers, votes began to shift. In markets, deals changed hands. In dark corners where Zaltari spies once watched, human intelligence officers now listened. And all the while, Earth said little. It didn't need to shout. Its actions spoke louder than any speech ever could. For the first time in generations, the galaxy saw something that left even the oldest species in awe, a civilization that had faced betrayal. Interference and Lawsand responded with justice, not revenge. They didn't burn worlds, they burned lies. They didn't erase cultures, they erased control, didn't seek to rule. They sought to be left alone, and to make sure no one ever tried to control them again. And as Operation Requital continued, even those who had once feared Earth began to respect it. Not just for its power, but for its discipline, for its ability. To act with purpose and restraint, Zaltari, seeing their influence crumbling, could only retreat. They tried to regroup, to reorganize, but each time they did, a quiet force pushed them back. A team, a drone, a message from the shadows. You are no longer in control. The galaxy didn't celebrate loudly, but it remembered. It remembered the colony lost at Proxima Venturis. It remembered the faces of those who had died trying to build peace. And most of all, it remembered who had stood up not with empty words, but with careful, determined action. Earth had passed the turning point. It had gone from victim to protector, from a species learning the rules to one that now helped write them. The Zaltari had hoped to start a war and twist the story. Instead, it became the warning, the example of what happens when you break the oldest rule and try to silence a world that refuses to be tamed. And now, all that remained was the final step. The Zaltari did not surrender because of fear, they surrendered because they finally understood what they had truly done. In their pride and overconfidence, they had believed they were dealing with a young, unpredictable species that could be shaped and controlled. After watching their networks vanish, their influence collapse, and their control shattered without a single planet being destroyed, they saw the truth. What they had awakened was not just another spacefaring civilization, it was a force that had risen too fast, learned too deeply, and carried within it the weight of every struggle it had ever faced. Humanity was not just surviving anymore, it was shaping the future. The surrender was quiet. No grand speeches, no final battles, just a message, sent across secure channels from the Zaltari High Council to the Galactic Tribunal. They admitted their interference. They accepted responsibility for breaking the oldest rule, and they offered to step back from leadership and allow the Council to decide their fate. It was not a gesture of honor, but of recognition. The galaxy had changed. They could not stop it. In the days that followed, the Galactic Council met in its largest gathering in centuries. Every major species sent representatives. The Zaltari sat in silence. Earth's delegation arrived not with warships, but with data records, witness, logs, and a proposal. It was not a demand for punishment. It was a plan to make sure this never happened again. The oldest rule, once sacred but weakly enforced, would now have strength behind it. A new organization was formed, the Sentient Rights Vanguard. It's an independent body with the authority to investigate, expose, and respond to violations of the rights of developing civilizations. And at its head were not the oldest empires or the wealthiest species. It was led by a council of human diplomats, advisors, and strategists. Earth had not asked for leadership, but the galaxy had chosen it, because they had seen that when Earth acted, it did not act for conquest, it acted for balance. Humanity did not burn planets, it burned deception. It did not enslave or control, it removed those who did. In the time that followed, changes spread like light across the stars. Species once too scared to speak about hidden interference now stepped forward, telling their stories. Investigations were opened. Forgotten treaties were rewritten. And all. The while Earth remained steady, not seeking power, but guiding the shift. What had begun as an act of survival had become a movement that would protect millions of lives across thousands of worlds. At the final assembly, where the new laws were signed, Earth's ambassador stood on the central platform. She looked around at the gathered leaders, some allies, some former enemies, all now listening. Her voice was calm but carried the strength of a world that had risen from silence. She said, "We didn't ask for war. We didn't come to your stars looking for enemies. But when someone tries to decide our future for us, when someone reaches into our past and changes it without asking, we will not stay quiet. We will not wait for justice. If you ever try to shape us again, we will stop you completely." Final words echoed not as a threat, but as a promise, repeated in every language of the council. "Touch our future again, and we'll end yours." There was no applause. There was no celebration, just understanding. Because in that moment, everyone finally saw humanity for what it had become. Not a weapon, not a tyrant, but a guardian. A race that had been broken, studied, and used to remain small. In the months after, Earth did not seek revenge. It returned to building, to learning, to exploring. But its shadow now stretched across the stars, not in fear, but in respect. Its name, once unfamiliar in the halls of power, was now spoken with caution, with admiration, and sometimes even with hope. The stars remembered what had happened, not just the fall of the Zaltari, but the rise of a race that had refused to be rewritten. A race that had defended not only its own future, but the freedom of all who were still growing, still dreaming, still learning what it meant to be alive. And in every council meeting that followed, in every decision made about contact, technology, and culture, one voice always remained in the room, the quiet, steady voice of Earth, reminding the galaxy that rules must mean something, that progress must have limits, and that freedom, once threatened, will always rise to defend itself. The story of humanity's rise was now written into law, into memory, into the very heart of galactic history, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as the new rulemakers born not from power, but from pain, and forged in the silence between stars.